I still remember walking into that New Year's Eve party thinking it would be just another boring night. But the moment her eyes met mine across the kitchen, I knew I was wrong. Sarah had texted me 3 times that day asking me to come. We broke up 6 months ago, but somehow we stayed friends. It was strange, but it worked. She said it would mean a lot if I showed up, so I did. The house in Denver was already packed when I arrived around 8. Music was loud, people were laughing, and silver and gold streamers hung from the ceiling, shining under the chandelier. The place smelled like perfume, food, and champagne. Sarah saw me right away and waved, her smile wide and warm like nothing between us had ever broken. She hugged me quickly and pulled me toward the kitchen, and that is when I saw her. Victoria, Sarah's mom. The woman who spent 2 years telling her daughter I was not good enough. The woman who once called me a phase. The woman who looked at me like I was something stuck to the bottom of her shoe. She was standing by the counter, arranging cheese and crackers on a wooden board like it was art. She wore a black dress that looked expensive, and her blonde hair was pulled back tight. When she looked up and saw me, something flashed across her face. It was not happiness. "Mom, you remember Marcus," Sarah said, smiling like this was normal. Victoria's lips curved into a tight smile. "Of course, Marcus. Still working construction?" The way she said it made it sound small, like I was digging holes for a living. "I actually own a construction company now," I said calmly. "We have contracts in 3 states. She raised one eyebrow. "How nice. Still working with your hands, though?" Sarah jumped in, trying to fix it. "Mom, he's doing really well." But Victoria had already turned back to her cheese board like I did not matter. My face burned. Even after everything I built, she still saw that broke 23-year-old kid with no college degree and no future. Sarah pulled me away and whispered an apology. She blamed the divorce, said her mom had not been the same since her dad left. I nodded, but I stayed. Part of me wanted to walk out. The other part wanted to prove something. The party got louder as the night went on. I talked to cousins, drank soda because I was driving, and tried to relax. But I kept noticing Victoria moving through the room. She laughed with guests. She smiled. But her eyes looked empty, like she was acting. Around 9:30, I went outside to help bring drinks in from her car. The air was cold and sharp. I could see my breath. I grabbed a case of champagne, and when I turned around, she was there holding another. We walked back inside in silence. In the kitchen, she started placing bottles in ice buckets with careful hands. "You didn't have to help," she said without looking at me. "I know. I should have let it go. I should have walked away. Instead, the words came out before I could stop them. Why do you hate me so much?" Quote. She froze for a second, then kept working. "I don't hate you, Marcus. I don't think about you enough to hate you." That hurt worse than anything. "You made Sarah feel bad for dating me," I said. "You told her I had no future." "I was protecting my daughter," she snapped. "You were 23, no degree, no plan. What was I supposed to think?" Quote. "You could have given me a chance." She finally looked at me. Her hazel eyes were hard. Life doesn't give chances. It gives consequences. Before I could answer, someone called her name. She walked away, leaving me standing there with my fists tight. At 11, I overheard her talking to a woman near the fireplace. "The divorce was finalized in August," Victoria said softly. 31 years. He left me for someone barely older than Sarah." Her voice cracked. I moved away before she saw me listening. At midnight, fireworks exploded outside. Everyone hugged and cheered. I found Sarah, wished her Happy New Year, and grabbed my coat. As I walked toward the door, I looked back. Victoria was standing alone by the window, watching the fireworks through the glass. People celebrated around her, but she looked completely separate from it all, alone in a crowded room. That image stayed with me all night. The next morning, I woke up with something new inside me. It was not anger. It was something else. Curiosity. Determination. She thought I was nothing. She thought I would never grow into something worth respect. I decided I would prove her wrong. 3 weeks later, I went back to Sarah's house. I told myself it was because Sarah and I had lunch plans. But I also knew Victoria would be home. Sarah's car was gone. Victoria's silver sedan was in the driveway. I almost left. Instead, I knocked. She opened the door wearing jeans and a simple sweater. Her hair was down, no heavy makeup. She looked softer, younger, tired. "Marcus, Sarah isn't here." "I think I got the time wrong," I said. She studied me for a moment, then stepped aside. "You can wait inside. I just made coffee." The house was quiet, no music, no guests, just our footsteps on the wood floor. She poured 2 mugs without asking how I liked it. She added cream and slid one across to me. I took a sip. It was exactly how I drank it. "How did you know?" Quote, "You made it that way at the party. I noticed things." We sat at the kitchen table in silence. Finally, she spoke. "Sarah told me about your business. That's impressive." "Thank you." She stared out the window at the winter yard. "Maybe I judged you too quickly." The words sounded stiff, like they hurt. "You were protecting her," I said. She let out a small, bitter laugh. "Or maybe I was scared of my own failures." Her voice changed, softer, honest. "My husband left me," she said quietly. 31 years, and he decided he wanted someone younger. I built my whole life around that marriage. Now it's gone. She looked at me, and for the first time I did not see the cold woman who mocked me. I saw someone broken. "I'm 54, she continued. "It's too late to start over." "It's not," I said. She shook her head. "You're young. You don't understand." I stood and walked closer, keeping space between us. "You're smart. You're talented. You notice things. That matters." She looked at me differently then, like she was seeing me clearly for the first time. "Why are you really here?" she asked quietly. "Don't lie." I swallowed. "I wanted you to see that you were wrong about me," I admitted. "But I also wanted to understand you." Her eyes softened. After that day, I started coming by more often. We talked on the back porch with coffee in our hands. She told me about her marriage falling apart slowly over years. I told her how her words once pushed me to work harder, how I built my company partly out of anger. One night, I came back because I forgot my phone. She opened the door with red eyes. She had been crying. "My ex-husband is getting married," she whispered. She sat on the couch and broke down in front of me. "I feel worthless," she said, "like I wasted my life." I moved closer, leaving space but staying near. "You're not worthless," I said. "Why are you being kind to me after everything I said to you?" "Because everyone deserves kindness." She looked at me like she did not believe that. Slowly, I placed my hand on the couch between us, palm up. It was an invitation. She stared at it for a long moment. Then she placed her shaking hand in mine. Her hand was cold in mine, but she did not pull away. We sat there in her living room, the lights low, the house quiet except for the sound of her breathing trying to steady itself. I could feel how hard it was for her to let someone see her like this. Victoria was not the type to fall apart in front of anyone. She was the strong one, the controlled one, the woman who always had something sharp to say. Now she looked small. "I'm sorry," she whispered again, wiping her face. "You shouldn't have to deal with this." "I want to," I said softly. "You don't have to pretend with me." She looked at me for a long time, like she was searching for a reason not to believe me. But she did not find one. That night changed everything. After that, she stopped pretending she did not need anyone. And I stopped pretending I was just there to prove a point. A few days later, she texted me, asking if I wanted to get lunch downtown. It felt normal and strange at the same time. We met at a small cafe in Denver, with brick walls and local art hanging everywhere. She looked different. Still sad underneath, but lighter somehow. We talked about simple things at first. The weather, work, a movie she watched, but I could feel something building under the surface. "I've been thinking," she said finally, stirring her coffee even though she already added sugar. "About what?" "About what you said, about starting over." I nodded. "There's a gallery downtown that has an open call for local artists," she continued. "I've always wanted to submit my photography, but I never did. Robert used to say it was just a hobby." Her voice tightened when she said his name. "You should submit," I said without hesitation. She laughed nervously. "What if they reject me?" What if they don't? She stared at me like I just said something simple she had never allowed herself to consider. You really believe in me, don't you? She asked. I do. Something passed between us in that moment. It was not pity, it was not obligation, it was something deeper. Something that felt steady. 3 days later, we stood outside the gallery. She was holding her leather portfolio so tight, her knuckles were white. They're going to think I'm ridiculous, she whispered. They're going to see talent, I replied. She looked at me like she was trying to gather courage from my face. Then she pushed the door open. Inside, she handed over her work with shaking hands. The woman at the desk smiled and said they would call within a week. When we walked back outside, Victoria let out a breath, like she had been holding it for years. I actually did it, she said. You did. She turned toward me suddenly and hugged me. It was quick at first, almost automatic. But then she held on a little longer than expected. When she stepped back, her cheeks were flushed. Thank you, she said, quietly. We started spending more time together after that. Not planned, it just happened. Coffee on the porch, walks in the park, long talks that stretched into the night. She showed me her studio one afternoon. The walls were covered in black and white photos, city streets at sunrise, empty playgrounds, strangers lost in thought. They were beautiful. These are incredible, I told her honestly. She watched my reaction carefully. You don't have to say that. I'm not saying it to be nice. She looked at her own work differently after that. One evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, we sat on her back deck wrapped in blankets. The air was still cold, but neither of us wanted to go inside. Can I ask you something? She said. Anything. Why do you keep coming back? The question hung between us. At first I wanted you to see you were wrong about me, I admitted. But now I come back because I like being here. I like talking to you. I like who I am when I'm around you. She went very quiet. You make me feel seen, she said finally. Not as someone's ex-wife, not as someone's mother. Just as me. I felt my chest tighten at the way she said that. She turned toward me slowly. This is complicated. I know. You dated my daughter. I know. I'm 24 years older than you. I know that too. She studied my face carefully. And none of that scares you? It would scare me more to walk away. Quote, her breath caught. There was a long pause, the kind where everything could change depending on one move. She reached up slowly and touched my cheek. Her hand was warm this time. You're going to regret this, she whispered. Maybe, I said, but I'll regret it more if I don't try. She leaned forward and kissed me. It was soft at first, careful, like she was afraid the world might break if she pressed too hard. I kissed her back gently, letting her decide how far to go. When we pulled away, she looked stunned. I can't believe I just did that, she said, almost laughing. I can, I replied. But the real world was waiting. A week later, the gallery called. They wanted 6 of her photographs for their spring show. She cried when she told me. Not sad tears, proud ones. Then her face grew serious. We have to tell Sarah, she said. My stomach tightened. The next evening, we sat in her living room waiting. When Sarah walked in and saw us together, her eyes widened immediately. Oh my God, she said. You two are together? Yes, Victoria said calmly. Sarah started pacing. Since when? A few months, I answered. This is my mom, she said, staring at me. You dated me. I care about her, I said quietly. Sarah looked between us, confused and overwhelmed. Victoria explained everything. How we grew close, how we supported each other, how this was not some secret game. Sarah went outside for a few minutes. When she came back, her expression was softer. This is weird, she admitted. Like really weird. But Mom hasn't smiled like this in a long time. She looked at me seriously. If you hurt her, we're done. I won't, I said. It was not perfect, but it was honest. After that, Victoria and I stopped hiding. We went to dinner. We walked downtown holding hands. People stared sometimes. I could see them counting the years between us in their heads. One night, at a restaurant, she caught someone looking and sighed. "They're wondering why you're with someone my age." "Let them wonder," I said. "They don't live my life." She squeezed my hand under the table. Spring arrived slowly. Her gallery opening came in April. She wore a blue dress that made her eyes brighter than I had ever seen them. Her photos hung on white walls with small placards beneath them. People stood in front of them, discussing her work. I watched her talk about her art with confidence. She looked alive. Later that night, as we stood outside under the cool air, she looked at me with tears in her eyes. "You've changed my mind about a lot of things," she said. "Like what?" "Like second chances." I pulled her closer. I had stepped up to prove her wrong. I never expected to fall for her in the process. By early summer, what we had was no longer a secret, and it was no longer fragile. It was real. Victoria and I settled into a rhythm that felt natural in a way I never expected. I would finish work at my construction sites around Denver, covered in dust and sweat, and she would be waiting on her porch with 2 mugs of coffee, her camera resting on the table beside her. She said she liked seeing me drive up, said it made the day feel complete. We started waking up before sunrise on weekends. She would insist golden hour light was different, softer, more honest. We would drive out toward the foothills, her camera in her lap, my hand resting on her knee. She would take photos of empty roads, wildflowers, strangers walking dogs. I would watch her face when she found a shot she loved. That look of focus and quiet joy made everything worth it. One morning, as the sky turned pink over the mountains, she lowered her camera and looked at me. "You know what's strange?" she said. "What?" "I used to think my best years were behind me. Now I feel like I'm just getting started." I smiled. "That's because you are." She studied me carefully. "Does it ever bother you, the way people look at us?" I thought about it honestly. Sometimes, but not enough to walk away. She nodded slowly. "It bothers me more than I admit, not because of me, because of you. I don't want people thinking you couldn't find someone your own age." I laughed softly. "I found someone better." She rolled her eyes, but I could see the way her lips curved. The truth was, it was not always easy. There were whispers. A few of her old friends stopped calling. One of my business partners made a joke about me having mommy issues. I shut that down quickly. But the hardest part was not strangers. It was the quiet fear that this could fall apart. One night in July, we were sitting on her back deck again. The air was warm, fireflies blinking in the dark yard. She had her head on my shoulder, but I could feel tension in her body. "What's going on in that head?" I asked. She hesitated. "I ran into Robert today," she said finally. My jaw tightened without meaning to. "How did that go?" Quote, "He was polite, smug. He introduced me to his fiancée." The word hung heavy. "She's pretty," Victoria continued, "young, confident." She looked at me like I was some chapter he closed. I felt anger rise in my chest, but I kept my voice steady. "You're not a closed chapter." "That's the thing," she whispered. "For years, I built my identity around being his wife. When he left, I felt erased. And sometimes I'm scared that what we have is just me trying to prove I'm still desirable." Quote. I turned toward her fully. "Is that what this feels like to you?" She looked at me quickly. "No, that's what scares me. It feels real." I took her hands in mine. "Then trust that." Her eyes searched my face. "What if one day you wake up and realize you want a family, kids, a different future than I can give you?" The question hit harder than I expected. "I've thought about that," I admitted. "But when I picture my future, I don't see some checklist. I see peace. I see partnership. I see someone who understands me." She swallowed. "And that's me?" "That's you." She looked away, blinking back tears. "I don't want to hold you back," she said. "You're not holding me back," I replied firmly. "You're pushing me forward." For a moment, the only sound was crickets. Then she leaned in and kissed me, slower this time. Not uncertain like that first kiss. This one was deeper, confident. Like she was choosing me fully. That summer, her confidence grew, along with her gallery success. More people reached out about her photography. She started selling prints. She even taught a small weekend workshop at the gallery. The night of her second show, I stood in the crowd watching strangers admire her work. A man about her age stood beside me. "Are you the artist's son?" he asked casually. I almost laughed. "I'm her boyfriend," I said evenly. His eyebrows lifted, surprised. Then he nodded slowly. "Good for her." I found Victoria across the room talking to a couple about one of her photos. When our eyes met, she smiled at me in a way that made the whole room disappear. Later that night, after everyone left, we stood alone in the gallery. "You didn't have to stay the whole time," she said softly. "I wanted to." She stepped closer. "You know, when I first met you, I thought you were a distraction in Sarah's life. And now? Now you're the best thing that's happened to mine." Her words hit me in the chest. But real life does not stay perfect for long. In August, Sarah asked to talk to me alone. We met at a coffee shop downtown. She looked serious. "I need to ask you something," she said. "Are you really in this for the long haul?" Quote, "Yes." She studied my face. "Because Mom's changing. She's opening up again. She's planning trips. She's talking about the future. If this falls apart, it's going to break her." "I know," I said quietly. "And you're okay with the age difference? With the way people talk?" "I don't care about people." She leaned back in her chair. "You're serious?" "I am." Sarah sighed. "I never thought I'd say this, but she's happier with you than she ever was with Dad." That stayed with me. But even as things felt steady, doubt crept in sometimes. One evening, Victoria and I attended a neighborhood barbecue. Couples stood around grills and picnic tables. I noticed how some women looked at her with curiosity, how some men looked at me with confusion. On the drive home, she was quiet. "Talk to me," I said gently. "I overheard someone asking if you were my midlife crisis." She admitted. My grip tightened on the steering wheel. "You're not." She turned toward me. "Promise me something." "What?" "If one day this stops feeling right for you, tell me. Don't stay out of guilt. Don't stay because you feel responsible for my happiness." "I'm not with you out of guilt," I said firmly. "I'm with you because I love you." The word slipped out before I could overthink it. Love. The car went silent. She stared at me like I had just shifted the ground under her feet. "You love me?" she asked softly. "Yes." Her eyes filled, but she smiled. "I love you too," she whispered. And in that moment, the noise of the world faded. We were not a mistake. We were not a rebellion. We were not a phase. We were two people who found each other when we least expected it. But neither of us knew yet how much we would have to fight to keep it. Loving Victoria felt natural. Keeping that love steady in the real world was the hard part. By the time fall arrived in Denver, we had been together almost 9 months. The leaves turned orange and gold, and the air grew sharp again, reminding me of that New Year's Eve when all of this started. One afternoon, Victoria called me while I was at a job site. Her voice sounded tight. "Can you come over tonight?" she asked. "We need to talk." Quote, my stomach dropped. When I arrived at her house, she was sitting at the kitchen table, the same place where we first had coffee together. Her hands were folded in front of her like she was preparing for something serious. "What's going on?" I asked, taking the seat across from her. She took a slow breath. "Robert and his fiancée are moving to California," she said. "Sarah is thinking about going with them. She says it could be good for her career." The words hit me harder than I expected. "And?" I asked carefully. "And if she goes, I'll be here alone." "You won't be alone," I said immediately. She gave me a small smile. "That's not what I mean. I mean really alone. No daughter down the street. No family close by. Just me." I understood then. This was not about Sarah moving. This was about fear creeping back in. "Do you want to move too?" I asked. She shook her head. "No, my work is here. My gallery connections are here. My life is here now." She looked at me carefully. "But I need to know something, Marcus. I need to know that I'm not building another life around someone who might leave." I moved my chair closer to her. "I'm not your ex-husband," I said gently. "And you're not building your life around me. You're building it with me." Her eyes softened, but I could still see doubt hiding there. "I'm 55 next month," she whispered. You're 31. One day I'll have gray hair and wrinkles and you'll still be young. I reached across the table and took her hands. You think I don't see you? I asked. I see you. Every line on your face tells a story. Every year you lived made you the woman I love. She blinked quickly, fighting tears. You really don't care what people think? She asked. I cared once. I admitted. I cared what you thought of me. I wanted to prove I was good enough. She smiled sadly. And now? Now I just want to build something real with you. Silence filled the kitchen, but this time it felt steady instead of tense. A week later, Sarah came over for dinner. She looked excited and nervous. I got the job offer in California, she announced. Victoria froze for just a second, then smiled. That's amazing. I haven't decided yet, Sarah added quickly. I wanted to talk to you first. The three of us sat at the table. It felt strange and normal at the same time. I don't want you staying here just because of me, Victoria said honestly. You need to live your life. Sarah looked between us. Are you too serious? She asked suddenly. Yes, I answered without hesitation. Victoria nodded. We are. Sarah studied us for a long moment. I can see that, she said finally. Mom, you're different, stronger, happier. Victoria reached for her daughter's hand. That's because I stopped being afraid. Sarah turned to me. And you're sure? Quote. I'm sure. Sarah smiled slowly. Then I guess I better get used to this. A month later, Sarah moved to California. The house felt quieter after she left, but not empty. Victoria threw herself into her photography. She started planning a solo exhibit for the following spring. She traveled for weekend shoots. I supported her the same way she supported my business. One cold evening in November, I came home early from work and found her on the back deck, wrapped in a blanket, looking up at the sky. What are you doing out here? I asked, stepping beside her. Thinking, she said. About how scared I used to be of being alone. She looked at me, her hazel eyes calm. And now? Now I'm not alone. Even when you're not physically here, I don't feel alone. I sat down next to her. I used to think you were going to ruin my daughter's life, she said with a small laugh. I mocked you, dismissed you. I remember. She touched my face gently, and you stepped up anyway, not to prove me wrong, but to show me who you really are. I smiled. You changed your mind. She nodded. You changed my heart. Snow started falling lightly around us. The first snow of the season. Marcus, she said softly. Yeah? I don't want to waste another second being afraid of happiness. She reached into her pocket and pulled out something small. It was a simple silver ring. My heart stopped. I know this isn't traditional, she continued, her voice steady but emotional. And I know the world might not understand us. But I don't care anymore. She held the ring out to me. I want to spend whatever years I have left building a life with you, not out of fear, not out of loneliness, but out of love. For a moment I could not speak. This was the woman who once looked at me like I was nothing, the woman who mocked my job, my future, my worth. And now she was looking at me like I was her future. I took the ring from her hand and slipped it onto my finger. I was trying to prove you wrong, I said quietly. But somewhere along the way, I fell in love with you. She smiled through tears. You did prove me wrong, she whispered, about everything. I pulled her into my arms as snow continued to fall around us. A year ago, she saw me as a waste of time. Now she saw me as her forever. And I saw her not as my ex's mom, not as a woman with a past, not as a number. I saw her as the bravest person I had ever known, someone who let herself love again when it would have been easier to shut down, someone who chose growth over fear, someone who chose me. And I chose her right back, every complicated, unexpected, beautiful part of her. We went inside when the cold became too much, but the warmth between us stayed. Sometimes life does not give you the future you planned. Sometimes it gives you something better, something you never saw coming. And if there is one thing I learned from loving Victoria, it is this. Never let someone else decide your worth. And never let fear decide your future. Because the woman who once mocked me as a kid ended up holding my hand as my partner. And together, we built something neither of us believed was possible. A second chance. A real one.